It is likely you have written a research paper reporting primary or secondary research while in college. There are differences between academic research and workplace research. The most important difference between academic and workplace research is that workplace research is designed to respond to immediate exigencies, and the questions it seeks to answer may be different from the kinds of questions you've answered in academic papers. After reading the chapter and listening to this presentation, you will be able to accomplish the following objectives. This presentation focuses on how to evaluate sources from print media as well as the internet. It's important to first understand the difference between primary and secondary sources before you write workplace documents. Primary sources are original materials on which other documents are based on. These original materials present original thinking, report discoveries, and share new ideas. The information is presented in its original form and has not been evaluated, summarized, or interpreted by the authors. Secondary research is different because it describes, interprets, analyzes, and evaluates primary sources. Authors can also comment on and discuss the evidence and ideas discussed in the primary sources. Secondary sources are frequently created after an event or information to which they refer. It's also important to know that secondary sources often rely upon primary sources, combining them with other sources or applying them to new situations. A primary source provides direct or first-hand evidence about an event, object, person, or work of art. Characteristically, primary sources are contemporary to the events and people described and show minimal or no mediation between the document or artifact and its creator. As to the format, primary source materials can be written and non-written, the latter including sound, picture, and artifact. Examples of primary sources include scholarly journal articles that have been peer-reviewed by professionals or researchers in the industry, laboratory reports, technical reports coming from companies, government agencies, or university laboratories, statistical data such as the U.S. Census or demographic records, interviews, letters, and speeches. A secondary source, in contrast, lacks the immediacy of a primary record, as materials produced sometime after an event occurred. They contain information that has been interpreted, commented, analyzed, or processed in such a way that it no longer conveys the freshness of the original material. History books, dictionaries, encyclopedias, interpretive journal articles, and book reviews are all examples of secondary sources. Secondary sources are often based on primary sources. Now let's take a moment to think about the characteristics of scholarly sources. Typically, a scholarly source reports the results of primary research. The document is also used to establish or improve the professional reputation of the author. Readers of scholarly sources are commonly faculty, researchers, and students in a particular field of study. The characteristics of the document include an introduction of the topic and the purpose of the study, the methods used to conduct the research, the results, and a discussion of the new research in comparison to previous research or theory. These documents can expand theory or confirm new experimental approaches in that field of study. Examples of scholarly sources are peer-reviewed academic journals, dissertations completed by graduate students earning a doctorate degree, a thesis earned by a master's degree student or worked on by a master's degree student, government research reports, university research reports, or books published by university presses. Popular sources are different. The purpose of popular sources are to make money by supplying a platform to advertisers who want to reach a specific audience. These sources can report current events, entertain readers, or summarize research of general interest. The audience can be more of a general population that shares a basic understanding and interest in a topic, and typically the articles are authored by journalists or reporters. You'll see that popular sources of information typically have pictures with the articles, advertisements, and strong verbs that hold readers' attention. Other characteristics of popular sources are a cover page that features a colorful photo and highlights a few articles in the source. You'll note that the word journal does not appear in the name of the popular source. These sources are typically found at stores, newsstands, libraries, or on the internet. And you will not find a summary or abstract for each article, and the articles do not cite references. Some examples of popular sources include Newsweek, Successful Farming, the Salt Lake Tribune, NBC News, or press releases and online news posted on organizations' websites, such as the United States Department of Agriculture. Now that we have a better understanding of primary versus secondary sources and scholarly versus popular sources, it's important that we know how to evaluate a print piece. And there are 5 criteria you want to use when evaluating print sources. You want to look at the relevancy of the source, the authority of the source, the objectivity of the information, the quality of the information, and the currency of the information. Now I'm going to walk through those 5 criteria using an example of a government report found on the USDA's website. In the left-hand corner, you will see a Word document titled Evaluating Source Materials. This document is available for you to download, and this PDF file is also available for you to look at while watching this presentation. In terms of relevancy, we want to identify if the source is scholarly or popular, and this source is scholarly. It is reporting primary research collected by the Economic Research Service, and it's a government report downloaded from the United States Department of Agriculture's website. When looking at the authority, we want to think about the author and the background of the publisher. The authors of this piece are Robert Hopp and Penny Korb. The article does not tell us a lot about the author's credentials. So frequently, you need to check Google to see what are the credentials of the authors. And by doing a quick search for the article, we can see that Robert Hope's name is here on the website. And when we click on it, we know that he is an agricultural economist with the Economic Research Service at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Credentials can also relate to level of education or training in the topic, and that Bob has both a BA in economics and an MA in agricultural economics. And he is affiliated with the American Agricultural Economics Association, and that is an academic association of researchers and faculty interested in agricultural economics issues. Now, if you're unsure about the author's reputation among peers, you can search Web of Science, which is a database, or Google Scholar to see if the author's been cited in other articles, books, or bibliographies. And in doing this, we can see that he's authored books. He's been cited by Auburn University, Purdue University, the Cattle Network, Cornell University, and a lot of other books, associations, and universities. We could say that he has a good reputation because other individuals are citing his information and seek him out as an expert. We also want to note who is the publisher of the document. And a publisher can be an individual, a government organization, a university, a research center. And so, as you can see here, the publisher is the United States Department of Agriculture Economic Research Service. And it is a reputable institutional organization in the agricultural industry. So now we want to think about how we actually look at the objectivity of the author and the quality of the work. For the objectivity of the author, we want to identify the purpose of the document. And if we go and look here, we'll see a summary. And this is an executive summary of the report, and it clearly states that by using census data from 1978 through 2007, this report provides detailed information about women farmers and the types of farms they operate. This will be the purpose of the document. It's very informational. We also want to see if the author exhibits a bias and if there are both sides of a controversial issue presented. By scrolling through the first few pages, we'll clearly see that the purpose of this document is to state what the study found. It's factual with a lot of unbiased information from the surveys. In terms of the quality of the work, the information is well organized. It has a good table of contents to help find the different sections of the report. It also gives you the page numbers so you can easily go to that page. The summary has great subheadings that say exactly what's the issue, what the study found, and how the information was conducted. And then starting on page 1, it goes with the introduction. The main points are clearly presented, and the author's argument is not repetitive. Each page presents something new in terms of the study. By reading the article, we can also see that the author used good grammar, correct spelling, and good punctuation. When looking at tables, it's important to see if the text is poorly presented compared to the graphics. And we can see that the tables are well supported with the information in the document, that they do not outweigh the information, that the tables are clearly labeled with a table number, a title, all of the information, and even notes at the bottom telling us more details about that particular table. It is important, though, that each figure or table be introduced in the body of the text. This is something you want to make sure you see, that there is not a table presented before it's discussed in the body. This is a weakness of the article because, for example, they reference Table 1 on page 7, and then they reference Table 2 up here on page 7, but the images appear on page 6 and on page 5. We also want to look at the currency of the work. When was the source published? And if it's a website, you want to identify the date of when the website was created as well as when it was revised. And by going back up to the first page, we can see here on the cover page the report was published in April 2013, which is very current. Most print publications, it's acceptable to use like the last 5 to 7 years of research, depending on your discipline. But online sources are much more current, and we usually say within the last 2 to 3 years of the research published in the time that you're writing the report. You also want to see if the source has been updated in a subsequent edition, and you can do that by searching WorldCat or the internet and seeing if there's another version of this article. And we can see here that this is the most current one available. And with that, we were able to quickly evaluate the source to decide if it is a credible source of information to cite in a report that we would be writing about characteristics of women farm operators and their farms. Now, why is this important? It's important to be able to evaluate your print publications, but it's also really important you spend time in evaluating your web sources. And that's because anyone can publish anything on the internet. And unlike a lot of these print sources, web sources don't have to be professionally accepted, edited, and being published with academic journals and associations. So there are additional criteria you need to look at when evaluating online sources. These criteria include accuracy, authority, currency, objectivity, and coverage. And I'll quickly address these by using the example of the website from which we were able to get our research report for how we evaluated the print piece. Okay. So you'll see here that we want to go back and look at the original piece because we want to evaluate a few different criteria. Like we said, when you evaluate web source, you look at the accuracy. You can go and look and see if other reliable sources provided the same information. A way that you could do this is through data. And then you could search for the U.S. Census of Agriculture and then be able to see if you can't look up the statistics and know that they match what was reported in that research report by Robert Hope. We can also look and see about the USDA's Agricultural Resource Management Survey on what data was collected here, and then check and verify the data reported here as compared to what was in the report that we looked at. Another thing that you want to look at is seeing if there's any reliable links to other resources. We can see that we have a link to a report summary, and we have links to other related topics. And so if we click on those, we might be able to see what they relate to. And usually for the United States Department of Agriculture, it links back to reports its economists or authors have written. For the authority, again, you want to check the publisher. You want to know if the publisher is an individual, a company, a trade organization, an institution, or a government agency, and you can do that by looking here at the URL address. You want to check to see if it's a .gov for a government agency, .edu for a university or college, .com for companies, and .orgs for a lot of trade organizations, institutions, commodity groups, or nonprofit organizations. It's important that you also see that there's a link to information about the author or sponsor, such as the link here that takes you to more information about Robert Hope. You can also look to see if the website has an official insignia, such as the one up here for the USDA logo, and if it's possible for you to contact the webmaster or the author from the website. And we can see here that we can contact Robert Hope through this email address, but we may check and see if we can't connect him by clicking here. So there's multiple ways of reaching him. And then we want to think about currency. Can we identify the date in which the website was created? And you will see here it was last updated Friday, April 26, 2013, and that the publication was produced in April 2013. We can also know that we've discovered the site through a search engine like Google or Google Scholar. And then you check all the links and make sure they work. And if you find a lot of dead links, that can indicate that the webmaster does not keep the website current and is not found to be a really valuable, accurate source of information, that it's outdated possibly. As you can see, we can access all the documents. There doesn't really seem to be anything that is out of date when you click on links. So it's very current and it's maintained well. We also want to look at the objectivity. Is there any advertising on this site? And we can clearly see that there is no advertising for any other business, organization, other than the United States Department of Agriculture, which is the publisher of the piece. Then lastly, we want to know a little bit about the coverage of the article. Does the author provide detailed information? And then can that information be viewed or downloaded in a full report? Absolutely. We are not only able to look at a report summary, but we can download an entire report. We can get an HTML version, and we can even download a zipped file with all the information complete. We can clearly see that in the report that there's a lot of details. It's thoroughly researched and written, and has a great coverage about the characteristics of women farmers. These are the other criteria that you need to think about when evaluating web sources.